On May 19, 2018, 24-year-old Jastine Valdez was doing paperwork to renew her residency permit. Then she headed to the gym. After her workout, which ended at 4:20 p.m., she was going to drive home. Her mother, Teresita, sent the girl a text message and asked her to buy bread on her way home. The girl went into the store, completed her purchase and went to the bus stop. She boarded the number 185 bus, which was traveling to Bray. After 6 p.m., the bus arrived at the village of Enniskerry, where Jastine lived. The girl got off the bus and walked home. Her home was in a rural area, and the journey from the bus stop was not a short one. The walk home from the bus stop was 15 to 20 minutes. It was not difficult for a young, active girl to walk this way. She traveled it almost every day and knew the area well. But that day, Jastine never returned home. Her mother looked out the window and waited for her daughter to return, but she was still gone. The woman felt anxious because her daughter was always in touch, and if she was late or changed her plans, she would contact her mother. Teresita tried to call her daughter, but it was useless. She didn't pick up her cell phone or respond to messages. The woman jumped out of the house and walked towards her daughter to the bus stop. But she never saw Jastine on the way. She wasn't at the bus stop either. Teresita asked people on the street if they had seen her daughter. Several people confirmed that they had seen Jastine get off the bus, but no one could say where she was now. She headed in the direction of the house and was soon out of sight. The girl had a striking Asian appearance, so she was spotted by passers-by. She was dressed in a sporty style, gray leggings, white t-shirt, sneakers, and a dark jacket. But where was Jastine, and what could have happened to her? The worried mother ran around the streets looking for her daughter and for witnesses who could see where she had gone. But the woman could not find any trace of her. In desperation, she called the police to report her daughter's disappearance. Detectives took her statement and began searching for Jastine. While the police were searching, the detectives looked further into Jastine's life and social circle. They wanted to find out if she might have run away. Jastine Valdez lived with her parents, Teresita and Daniel Valdez, in rural Enniskerry, Ireland. It is a beautiful, cozy place with a population of less than 2,000 people. She was born in the Philippines to a poor family. Her parents, in search of a better life, moved to Ireland from the Philippines. They settled well there, sending money to support their daughter to the relatives she lived with. In time, her parents were able to earn enough money to move their only daughter to Ireland, whom they loved more than anything else in the world. In 2015, Jastine joined her parents. The girl was smart and aspired to get a decent education. She went to university and started studying accounting. She also got a part-time job to pay for her studies and help her parents with money. Jastine worked part-time as a waitress at a restaurant in Bray and also babysat and cared for neighborhood children. Jastine's family lived in the servants' quarters of a huge mansion owned by a wealthy and influential family. Her father worked as a gardener and her mother was a housekeeper who took care of the owner's house. The girl was very responsible, worked hard, studied, and fulfilled all her obligations. No one believed that she could run away and leave her family, which she loved so much. In addition, because of her busy schedule, she had few friends. The police called all the acquaintances of the missing person, and they all denied knowing her whereabouts. Jastine was already out of the teenage years that some teens want freedom and run away from home. She was a quiet and homely girl and had never acted like that before. Therefore, the version of running away was not considered by anyone. The girl was always in constant contact with her parents and informed them about literally every step she took. That day was no exception. She and her mother exchanged 63 messages. The last message she sent was at 6:24 p.m. when the girl got off the bus. As detectives continued to search for information on the missing person's whereabouts, they received an interesting tip from co-workers. It turned out that just minutes after Jastine got off the bus, police received a disturbing call. A female motorist saw a male driver of a black Nissan Qashqai pushing a girl into the trunk of his car. The girl was an Asian woman with dark hair wearing sportswear and was described as looking very similar to the missing person. The woman told police that while driving down the road with her 12-year-old son, she saw a suspicious car on the side of the road with its headlights off. The woman became alert and drove past it at a slower pace, looking closely at the auto. She saw a girl lying in the trunk screaming and the kidnapper trying to close the trunk. The woman was frightened but did not engage in an argument with the perpetrator. She drove a safe distance away from that car and called the police. Soon another motorist saw this frightening scene as he drove by. But this time, An Asian girl was sitting in the back seat of the auto and tapping fearfully on the window. That man didn't realize what was happening at first, but wondered what it was. When he got home and discussed the situation with his wife, he realized that something was wrong here. It looked like she had been kidnapped. That's when he called the police at 7:20 p.m. to report that the girl had been kidnapped. Another driver contacted police and said he saw a suspicious Nissan car driving erratically around 6 kilometers from Enniskerry. Patrol officers arrived at the location given by the female caller and found the missing woman's broken cell phone and a bag of bread on the side of the road. This discovery looked very disturbing and suggested that the girl was in trouble. They passed this information on to the station. The investigators, having learned about it and collected all this information, came to the conclusion that the kidnapper attacked the girl coming from the bus stop. He first tried to hide Jastine in the trunk, but the girl resisted strongly, and he failed to do so. Then he put her in the back seat of his car and took the girl to an unknown destination. The kidnapper's black Nissan was put on the wanted list. Patrol cars drove around the area and searched for the car. Helicopters inspected the area from the air. By that time it was already dark, which complicated the search for the missing girl. In the end, nothing could be found, so they decided to postpone the search until morning. At dawn, the search was resumed. While the search efforts continued, detectives once again interviewed a female motorist who had witnessed the girl's abduction. She was able to describe the perpetrator. Investigators gathered information on all black Nissan Qashqai cars registered in the area. They turned out to be very few, and one driver aroused their suspicion. It was 40-year-old Mark Hennessy, and he looked very much like the kidnapper's portrait. The police officers went to his house to check on him. The man was not at home, and the door was opened by his wife, Nicola. She told an amazing story. She said the husband had left for work yesterday at 7:30 a.m. as usual and then came home after 3 p.m., had lunch, and left at 5:30 p.m. for a bar. The husband had planned to have a drink and relax after a hard day's work, but never returned home, and his wife was unaware of his whereabouts. This information raised even more suspicions about Mark, and investigators began looking into the man. Mark Hennessy seemed to be a positive character from all sides. He was a model family man, husband and father of 2 young daughters, the youngest of whom was born 8 months ago in September 2017. He came from a respectable family and lived in an affluent neighborhood with other young families. Mark worked as an estimator on construction sites and earned a good income, supporting the whole family. The man had no criminal record and no problems with the law, and it was hard to imagine that such a model member of society could commit a crime. However, the police officers were well aware of the fact that such things sometimes happen. Mark could be a wolf in sheep's clothing and appear to be something he was not. Police officers went to the bar where Mark had gone last night to make inquiries about him. The staff confirmed that the man had been there the night before, but not for long. He had a beer, watched some soccer, and left because he found the match boring. Mark seemed quite normal. Toward midnight, he showed up at the bar again and looked very anxious and was out of sorts. Investigators looked at the bar's CCTV footage and were satisfied that the staff's statements were credible. Mark spent about 10 minutes at the bar. He left the bar at 5:40 p.m. and headed to his car while talking on the phone. He then got in it and drove away. After 11 p.m., he actually returned to the bar, chatted with a couple he knew there in the doorway, and left. Detectives were puzzled as to where Mark was between 5:40 p.m. and 11 p.m., what he was doing, and why he never showed up home. By then, investigators had requested CCTV footage of the very bus Jastine was riding in and examined it. It turned out that Mark's black Nissan had followed the bus half an hour after he left the bar. He had literally followed it during the day, which made his behavior even more suspicious. The search for Mark's car and the missing girl continued. No one doubted that the disappearance of the 2 men was connected, and Mark was considered a suspect in Jastine's kidnapping. Investigators couldn't track his cell phone because it was on and off. Mark called his wife once and told her he wasn't coming home again. It turned out that Mark even met with his family, who begged him to turn himself into police, but he refused and left. Mark's parents relayed this information to detectives. They tried to track him down again, but he was no longer available. He was always one step ahead. The police asked for the public's help through the media. They asked anyone who knew the whereabouts of Jastine, Mark, and his car to come forward, and it helped. One woman who was listening to the press conference saw a similar Nissan Qashqai car on the road with a similar driver behind the wheel. She followed him to make sure it was really him. The woman followed his car to Cherrywood Park, where she took a close look at the driver. She then called the police and reported it. Arriving police officers found a man behind the wheel. He was covered in blood, and Mark refused to get out of his vehicle. Waving a knife in a threatening manner, he forced the police officers to use their firearms. The bullet hit him in the shoulder. After pulling him out of the car, they found him conscious. As they began to examine the auto, they did not find the missing girl. Police officers began asking him where Justin was, but he remained silent. Medics rendered aid to him, and he was taken to the hospital. Doctors fought for his life in the hope that he could tell where the kidnapped girl was. However, it turned out that the bullet ricocheted and hit him in the head. Soon, the man died. It turned out that the blood on his face and body was his own. He had several fresh stab wounds on his arm and neck. Police speculated that he decided to settle the score with a knife that was in his car because he was afraid of being exposed when the police caught up with him. Everyone was disappointed that although they were able to find the suspect and his car, they could not find the missing person, who was the main target. However, they did find a note, the contents of which were difficult to make out because of the blood. Police officers were only able to read the words "sorry" and Pax Castle. Apparently, it was an indication of Justine's location. The police almost didn't believe the girl was still alive, but continued to search for her. The parents prayed for their daughter's safe return home. Police officers conducted a thorough search in a wooded area in the south of Dublin, which was indicated in a note near the castle. First, her purse with documents in Justine's name was found, and then on May 21st, the girl's body was found in the woods. She was identified as the missing Jastine Valdez. An autopsy on the body revealed that the girl had been murdered on the evening of the abduction. Cause of death was determined to be manual strangulation. The medical examiner determined Jastine was raped. Also, another strangeness was found. As a result of toxicological examination, it was possible to establish the presence of a very small amount of prohibited substances in the body of the girl, which got there already after her death. However, it was not possible to find out how and why they appeared there in the body. Mark was found to have a large dose of these substances. It turned out that he had recently abused alcohol and substances, which is probably how they got into Justine's system. Mark's family life was going downhill. His spouses often quarreled because of his substance abuse, and he had accumulated debts. It turned out that he installed the dating app Tinder and actively corresponded with different girls there. Acquaintances told how he flirted with female bar patrons. Mark's DNA was found on the body of the victim. Now all police suspicions of his involvement in the kidnapping of the girl have been confirmed. Detectives concluded that the murder was sexually motivated, and Justine was a random victim who just happened to be around when Mark was looking for his victim. He was following a bus, saw the girl, and kidnapped her in broad daylight on the street, without even stopping when he came within sight of several witnesses. He then drove her away, raped and strangled her. Having studied the phones of the murdered woman and the criminal, investigators found that they were not acquainted, never communicated or called each other. They did not even have mutual acquaintances. However, upon closer examination, the detective's opinion changed. It turned out that Mark had traveled the route the girl had taken very often, and at the same time. This suggested that Justine's murder was not a spontaneous crime. Mark had been following the girl for a long time, and on that day, he decided and attacked her. He had probably previously just been watching her, studying her schedule, hesitating and waiting for the right moment. That day, he purposefully drove out of the bar towards the bus stop and followed the bus and then lurked and attacked Justine. She was the one he was waiting for. The locals were shocked by such a horrific tragedy. Such a thing had never happened before in their quiet, peaceful neighborhood. Many people came to support the bereaved family at the farewell ceremony. White balloons were released into the sky. Some of her loved ones wore pink t-shirts with Justine's picture on them. The family of the deceased brought her body and buried her in her homeland in the Philippines. They stayed there to live for a while, but later moved back to Ireland in 2021, where there were more opportunities. They moved to another city and changed jobs to get rid of the painful memories associated with those places. Share your opinion in the comments, and also put likes if this story seemed interesting to you. But don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Thanks for watching. See you soon.